want to introduce you all to Blue Serenity, a 42 card deck of affirmation cards that I have been creating for the last 2 years. The cards that are inside this deck focus on positivity, calmness, and lending strength. So let's take a look at some of the card designs and the process that I took going about creating this deck of cards. Along with the 42 cards that you'll receive, you'll also have a starter pamphlet in the box. This here really is just to get you started using affirmation cards in your daily healing practice, with some suggestions and recommendations and how you can go about shuffling them or selecting the cards. I find that affirmations and the way you use them is going to be up to you, the user, and how you find they benefit you. Perhaps you like to pull a card every day and use that as your daily mantra that you repeat to yourself, or perhaps when you're feeling extremely anxious or your anxiety is really high, you'll shuffle the deck and pull a card out, and that will be something that you will put your mind and focus to during your anxiety heightened state. You can also use these during healing with art time. I'm a huge fan of combining affirmations and taking time to heal with my art. I have a video where I talk about doing that, so I'll put a link for that in the description below if you are interested in hearing a little bit more about that subject. Now, let's just swipe this aside, and I want to show you from the beginning to where I am now in the lifespan of Blue Serenity. So let's just move this aside. Blue Serenity started one day when I was sitting on the couch, staring at my iPad and feeling extremely anxious. This is during 2020. So COVID is in full swing. We're all in lockdown and my anxiety is extremely heightened. And I was thinking about how I really needed an affirmation for that day to help me focus my mind and calm down. And then I started to think, man, I wish I had a card that I could just have in my hand and put on display. You know, like my brain just started firing off all these ideas. And I went into Procreate and I just started drawing. So basically what I started to do for my designs was I'd grab a photograph that I had taken of a flower. This one here is of an iris that's at a local botanical garden that I visit a lot. I actually love this garden. And I would then draw the flower. And I wasn't doing it in a very fancy way either. I was just colors, like solid shapes and coloring. If you can see here, I have all these different layers. So each shape is its own layer. And then I color coded it so I knew which layers go together. And I designed it that way. But then, in order to put it into an app that I was using called Designer, because at this time I was also really learning how to use different apps for turning my drawings into vectors, which basically means I'm turning it into a file that can be expanded to be any size that it needs to be without losing resolution. So while I was learning that, I was also doing this. I was keeping myself really busy during COVID lockdown. And in order to turn something into a vector, after I have this, I then needed to turn it into this, which was a solid black shape. I would then save this and open Adobe Capture. And this is an app that I use to turn all my JPEG files that are drawings into vector files. And then from here, I would use Designer. And then I started to put it all together. At first, I wasn't too sure about coloring, but then I thought about what colors represent and how I want these cards to feel. And I'm sorry for that beepy sound. it was my watch. And I settled on blue. Blue is a very calming color. It represents serenity and peacefulness. So that is the emotions that I wanted to go into my designs, which is how I chose to go with these exact colors. So every drawing I did, I then turned it into a card. Right here is just a grid layout of some of the card designs that I put together. These are the first 21 designs of the cards that you have access to and can see through a lot of my advertising for this. I'm gonna have the other 21 be more of a surprise for all of those who get the Blue Serenity deck. That way, you know, there are gonna be some in there that you haven't seen before. During the design process, while I was sitting here putting everything together, I wasn't 100% sure about my font types, because while I'm working on them here on the screen, they're actually quite legible, right? Because I'm making them really big, I'm typing them out, I'm going through everything. And at this point in time, I'm already going, wow, I've come up with a lot of designs. I think I'm gonna do a test print because I know I want these cards for myself. So let's see what size I wanna print them in. So at this stage, I have a few of these cards done. I have a couple different font types I'm not too sure about. I can't decide between going, you know, a more traditional loopy calligraphy style, or if I want to go more solid and bold. So I did a test print. In the lifespan of Blue Serenity, I have done several test prints. It's all about making sure that the file sizing is proper, the font is legible, the design works within the shape, and also to make sure I don't have any spelling errors. Which, P.S., I found a spelling error, which is why you want to have test prints. So this was the first batch of test prints that I did. I thought I wanted my cards to be a traditional size for tarot. You know, they're small, they're a good size to have in your hand. And I was like, this is gonna be the size that I wanna go with. It's more of a traditional shape. The downside that I found after having them in hand is that I actually thought they were a little too small for what I want the cards to be. So first, let's go over the design and what I tweaked and changed from it. So this is the backing. I really love the design on the computer screen. You know, I'm staring at my iPad. It looks great. I have my leaves that touch the edges and it's great. It looks really nice, right? But in person, printed, it actually looks crowded with the design. There's not a lot of breadth to it. And it actually feels more chaotic than peaceful. So this I knew had to change. And then when I looked at the font, I was like, ooh, this bold font definitely is complementary to the way the flowers and my design and the artwork that I have going with it. See, just feels like it goes better, right? But when I was comparing it to this one that I loved on the computer, I was like, oh no. It's legible as is where I'm sitting, but if I take the calligraphy one and I have it at a further distance, it's not as legible. Which then brought me to an idea. What if I didn't do this size? Yes, this size and shape is extremely popular around for tarot cards, oracle cards, and affirmations. But what if I made them bigger? Because if I wanted a card to sit on my desk while I'm working, I'm not too sure I want it to be that small. So I did another test. And when I did that test, I was also testing out the box types that they come in. So this one here, it's a rigid box. I didn't do any fancy printing because I didn't have any ideas yet at this point in time. Blue Serenity is still kind of like a baby project for me. I didn't have any thoughts about what I wanted the box to look like, but I wanted to see what the surface of a matte box would feel like? Is it durable? That kind of thing. So I went with a bigger card. These ones here are a 3.5 inches by 5 3/4. So it's 3.5 by 5.75 inches. It's drastically larger than the tarot cards, which allows for a little bit more of a breathability and legibility for the font, so you can have it a little bit bigger and have it at a further distance and still readable. It also, when I was doing the designs, gave me an opportunity to test out adding more space to the backing design and adjusting the design itself. And this, with more space around the edges, does make it feel less crowded, less chaotic, more calm. So with this, I did the 2 font test again, just to double check to see if the size makes a difference. And it did, it does make a difference, but I still found that the more decorative, swooshy, calligraphy styled font wasn't fitting well with the designs. It was just too much, where with the bold one right here, it really does lend to the design and it is very complementary to it. So at this stage, I know I like this size over the traditional tarot card sizes. So big ones are a yes. Bold font, yes. Back of the card design, yes. I am now feeling like super jazzed about this. I'm making more designs as every day goes along. I'm working on new flowers, researching what each flower represents and how it, lends to positivity and strength and encouragement and everything like that. And I'm really gelling with Blue Serenity. Let me show you my next stage of testing. And at this point, I'm feeling so good about it that I've decided that I'm not going to make this deck just for myself. At this point, I was making Blue Serenity as a thing that I would use during my healing with art time. But then I started to think, if I can benefit from it, so can everyone else. I started to talk about it with my friends and things like that, and I got encouraging, feedback and, oh my God, yes, I totally want a deck like that kind of thing. And I started to go, okay, well, how am I going to go about making this a feasible project that allows me to have this stuff on hand for those of you interested in it? And one of my friends recommended Kickstarter because they love Kickstarter for getting all their games and trying new cool things. And I was like, okay, we can't make it sound like that happened so smoothly. It wasn't. I did a pro-con list. I did so much stuff. I agonized over whether or not Kickstarter was the way to go, or should I just do a pre-order? But in the end, I decided to do Kickstarter. And when I decided to go with Kickstarter, and my designs have gotten further, so I have more than just 12 designs. I'm now reaching 42 card designs. I decided to do another test print because I had this idea. If I'm gonna do Kickstarter, I wanted to have something special about the cards and an option. Because what's great with Kickstarter is that you have all these different pledge tiers, right? I thought, what if I have a special pledge tier where if you pledge it, you get a special edition Kickstarter only kind of card. So then I was like, okay, well, what do I want them to look like? And I thought, I love gold, so I'm gonna try some with the gold edging. And then I just couldn't help myself. I tried doing the holographic backing cards, and oh my goodness, I fell in love with these. But I still wanted to make sure that these little detailings was something that wasn't just a me thing and that other people would like it. So I did a poll, and the holographic backs won hands down for the most popular option. I'm sorry, gold edged, you only got 1 vote. But as I started doing the math for the cards to see what would be a more reasonable price bracket and everything for those pledging and wanting to have Blue Serenity as a part of their healing process, I realized that having one pledge package just wouldn't be fair to those pledging to it just because of the costs alone. So I've decided to make it so that you have the regular full color backs and the design. And then if we reach the stretch goal of getting to a certain amount of dollar value, I will turn every deck into a holographic. Before I publicized that and put it on my Kickstarter page, I made sure I did a poll again to double check that it wouldn't deter people from selecting a card, that they would still want the cards even if they couldn't reach the stretch goal of getting holographic. And again, it was hands down 100%. Everyone that I asked said, if we can get to that stretch goal, that's awesome. But the holographic backs doesn't change the fact that you want the cards themselves. For the type of cardstock that I went with for the cards, I chose not to go with your average traditional cardstock paper. Though this is durable and should stand the test of time, I found that it's a little bit bendy and I wasn't too sure if I wanted it to be so bendy. So bendy, especially because I myself would love for the cards to be used and be able to be sturdy enough to stand up and go up against something or be wedged between something, or, you know, stand up. And also, I have a tendency to break things. So I wanted my paper to be a little bit stiffer. It still bends, so you can still shuffle the cards, and they're really great for that, but they are thicker. This is 150 GSM paper, which means it's going to be thick and it is more sturdier. Now that I've reached the stage where I'm doing my second to last testing to make sure that the special edition cards are what I want them to be, I need to also finalize the design of the card box and what kind of surface the box is going to have. I now have a matte box and a glossy box. In the end, I've actually chosen to go with the glossy surface of the box, and hear me out. I love the matte, I love the way it feels on my hands, but I chose to go with the glossy because the glossy surface is going to be a little bit easier to clean. And I say that for this reason and this reason only. When I'm using my cards for healing with art, I'm not always a tidy artist. You know, I spray paint around, I get my hands dirty, things happen. I'm not saying that this box is 100% wipe free. There are some paints, some pigments, especially with watercolor, that are staining. So there is a chance that you can dirty your box, but with the glossy one, it's going to be easier to wipe the paint off and clean it off versus with the matte, because it has the glossy coating on top, which protects the actual print and the box itself. As for the design of the box, I chose to combine several of the elements from the cards, like the monarch butterflies and the magnolias. I put in a protective eye. On the back, we have what affirmations are. I have my logo here on the side, and that is the box. Another thing that I really liked about the glossy one is that it opens even smoother than the matte one. I found when the matte box was new, it wasn't as easy to open. So see how I'm like holding just the edges? Even though it does slide open, it's not as easy to open. So it can be a little frustrating for if you're in the moment of anxiety, if you're feeling a panic attack coming on and you know you need something to focus your mind onto, this little tiny irritant might just be too much. And I know for myself, if I needed to sit down, do some breathing exercises and just calm myself down, having those few seconds of fiddling with a box would just add to the frustration and the emotions that I want to, push away, that I want to brush off, that I want to breathe away. But a box like this that easily opens will definitely make the process of selecting your cards a lot easier. Now let's look at some of the cards with their designs and the affirmations. This one right here, the flower in itself was inspired by the pink cherry blossoming flower that, sorry, my dog's barking. So this one was inspired by the pink cherry blossom styled tree that I have outside. That tree itself, whenever it blooms, it feels peaceful and there's a joy to it, and it has this renewing sense to it. And I paired this one with the I let go of all expectations. This one right here are daffodils. And the affirmation on it is, I am connected to my higher self and to the beauty surrounding me. If you pull a card like this, the beauty that's surrounding you, it could be anything. It could be the light that shines through the window. It could be the way the wind blows the trees. It could be something that you see that is within yourself or within the loved ones around you. Okay, so this one right here is a repeating pattern design on the back with, today I am patient with myself and with those who surround me. Alrighty, so I am not ashamed to admit that spelling errors and typos exist. And the reason why you want to do so many test prints is to eliminate any of those things. As you can see, this is not patient, it is patent. And I even have this card. It features in that how to use affirmations along with your Healing with Art Time video. I actually really love this affirmation. It calls to me frequently. But yeah, I mean, mistakes happen. It got spotted, and now in the official cards, it's been fixed. So that error won't be there in your Kickstarter cards, in any of the ones that you buy from me here on out, because this mistake was spotted and it will not be repeated. So for all the affirmations, there are going to be 4 cards that surround, say, cherry blossoms, 4 cards, daffodils, 4 cards, irises, and things like that. So there's going to be different designs for each type of flower. And they're all going to be done a little bit differently. I wonder if I have another, yeah. So here is another cherry blossom and a cherry blossom. So each card is a little different than the others. So not one design will be identical to the next, and each flower combo has a pattern. I'm really looking forward to the Kickstarter being successful and everybody getting cards and really finding peace and calm and using these in their daily practices. I'm actually super excited because I am waiting for the final test print with all 42 cards in it to triple check to make sure there aren't any mistakes in it whatsoever. So then that way, when Kickstarter is done, I can, and the project is fully funded, should we get there, I am very grateful and hopeful that we do get there, that I can put in the order right away and we don't have to wait for a test print to be sent because it will already be pre-approved. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video and learning more about Blue Serenity. If you would like to get a deck of cards, I have a link to my Kickstarter in the description section below. And thank you so much to all of you that pledge. If you feel like you are really into the project, but you aren't sure that you want to pledge for any of the larger packages, that's perfectly okay. What would be appreciated is if you just spread the word of Blue Serenity with all those you know and those who you think would really benefit from something like this. Any help and all help and love and everything from all of you is just so gratefully appreciated. This little community that we have here on my YouTube channel is so special. I mean, we're all here to support one another, to learn how to use art and healing and how to manage and deal with our stress and anxiety. And I really do hope that Blue Serenity is something that you can use as a part of that. And until next time, everyone, stay magical.